Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Rodney Jones, and I'll be hosting the webinar. Today, welcome to our Keeping Better Financial Records discussion. I'll still be letting a few people in. I see a couple more are showing up to join the meeting. Today, we have with us Dr. Courtney Bir, and she's going to be talking about financial records and better financial record keeping for agricultural producers. Want to welcome everyone. Remind you that the webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the website. The link for that website is posted in the chat box. So if you want to see any of our previous webinars, they're available there. And I will also be posting a survey. I would ask you to fill that out at the end of the webinar today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Courtney Bir. Thank you, Dr. Bir, for being with us.
Yeah, so we have a short time together. Please interrupt me if you have specific questions. My answer may be that's on the next slide, but please let me know if you do have questions. Okay. Can everyone see this? Somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see the slides. Can you see it, Rodney?
Yes, I think it's showing up just fine.
Perfect. Great. Okay. So I get a lot of questions about record keeping. And the first thing that I actually ask someone when they say, hey, I want record keeping software, I need help with record keeping, I don't know what I'm doing with record keeping, I always ask, what do you mean? Because there's a lot of different philosophies on record keeping. In an ideal world, we would do everything. We'd keep every single record, we'd have perfect records. But to be honest, no one can do that. Dr. Jones and I were talking this morning about how, in our own personal lives, we fall short on this. So there are production records. Those tend to be a little bit more fun for producers. Animal scientists really love those. It's fun to talk about, your calf weights and things like that um, at the coffee shop. Records for taxes, that's something that we have to do. So a lot of times people have questions about tax records. I am not a tax expert or preparer. Dr. or JC Hobbs is our tax expert. So if you ask me a tax question, I'm going to punt it to him. Financial analysis or planning. This is more of what I do. So the financial analysis and planning, these are records that we keep to try and meet our goals. These are important, especially if you want to consider expanding your farm or ranch, if you're considering adding different enterprises, if you're concerned about transition planning, financial analysis and planning for those purposes are more of a farm management style topic. And it really comes down to what are your goals? So like I said, not everyone can keep every record perfectly. The first step obviously is identifying your goals and then making sure that the type of records that you're keeping, the records that you focus on, help you achieve your goals. So general considerations. The first thing is make time for record keeping. Record keeping is kind of a chore, right? I'm an ag economist. I mentioned I'm terrible at record keeping myself. My biggest issue is that I do not set time aside. If I don't have time marked on my calendar, it's not getting done. So making time for record keeping is really important. Determine which information is economically feasible to collect. When I mean economically feasible, I don't just mean money. I also mean your time, which is money. So yes, ideally, we would have perfect records of absolutely everything. If you don't have a scale, you're not going to be able to capture, weights. If you don't have a ton of time, you may have to focus on the records that are related to your goals. And then summarize the data for use in the decision-making process. This is key. Keeping records to just check that box and say, whoo, I did it. I have the records. That is not helpful. That is just an exercise that you're doing. Where the real value comes from record keeping is when you compare differences year over year. That's the value. Or you compare the status of your farm or ranch to a like farm or ranch. So we talk a little bit about the FinBin data set sometimes. You can go in there, it's FINBIN, and you can look up different farms, different sizes, different enterprises, and you can see their financial records on average, right? We're not looking at individual people's records. And you can kind of compare where your farm or ranch is. So that is a helpful exercise to do. No records that are needed for programs you are enrolled in. I know FSA kind of drives a lot of record keeping, mostly because people are trying to make sure they hit those either goalposts or they want to make sure they have all the information to apply for things like loans or grants or other programs you may be involved in. When should you be doing record keeping? Um, It needs to be frequently. Once a week is really best. Once a month is okay. Once a quarter is kind of the bare minimum, and once a year is just simply not enough. If you're waiting till tax season to try and get all your records together, it's going to be a really, really tough time for you. Who should be doing this? There should be one person in charge of the system. This just helps with keeping things consistent. That doesn't mean that one person has to do everything. It should be everyone's responsibility, and everyone should be buying into the type of records you want to keep and how you're going to do it. So it doesn't need to necessarily be the same person in charge of production and in charge of the financial records. Um, all individuals need to buy into this. What does this look like? That means you let the record keeper know about items that need to be recorded. You're not just shoving a bundled up ball of receipts at them every single month, right? Like let's try and help this person out. So bringing in all the receipts from the truck. I'm encouraging the person in charge instead of discouraging. Please don't roll your eyes at them when they ask you a question, right? This is a team effort. Remember, this is a partnership, not a dictatorship. So if something is not working, and if it is a really big point of tension, if you have multiple people working on your farm operation, maybe we need to look at what the issue is. Maybe, you want to get that weight record, for example, and the scale is consistently broken, and then they're annoyed that they're having to get it to you. Or maybe you need to have something as simple as a folder in the truck to put in all the receipts, right? So if this becomes a point of argument and that kind of thing, have a conversation about it. See what you can do to help improve the process. It's not going to look the same for every single farm. What do good records offer? So really they offer cold, hard facts. I know it's really tempting to maybe not include something in the record, but we want this to be as factual as possible. It's the ability to compare to benchmarks. So benchmarks are other farms that are similar to yours. So what does it look like compared to other farms or your own farm year over year? Insights into strengths and weaknesses, problem identification. If you're starting to notice a trend that you want to correct, it's good to see it on paper before it becomes an outright issue. Identification of profit and loss centers. This happens quite a bit where you'll have one enterprise on the farm, let's say, hay, that is doing really, really well, and maybe your cattle are not doing as well. But if you never analyze those two things separately, as long as the farm overall is doing okay, you may not notice. So looking at different enterprises and making sure there's not a low performer that either needs to be overhauled or maybe cut from the operation. Looking at those things separately and not just the farm overall is a really helpful exercise. And then the direction for maximizing the return to owned resources. We have a limited amount of time, money, equipment that can be put towards the farm or ranch business. So we want to make sure that everything we're doing is its best use. And then documentation to obtain and maintain credit. This is usually when people come to me, is when they're having some kind of an issue with a lender and they want to make sure that they have everything in line to be able to successfully obtain or maintain credit. They also offer information regarding the feasibility of new ventures. So I know it's really tempting at auctions to start raising your hand. I'm sure everyone has a piece of ground that they're kind of thinking about or they dream about getting. If you know where you are, you can either set goals to expand or evaluate whether expansion is a good option for you. Employee incentive measures. So this is the idea that if we have a goal, so let's say the goal is to like increase weaning weight or something like that, you can potentially provide employees with either a monetary incentive or something else like that if those goals are met. Guidance on appropriate risk management strategies. So we have production risk, and then we also have financial risk that we can evaluate. So questions that record keeping can answer. Am I making more on crops or livestock? So we just talked about that example. Should I buy or raise hay? We also have some fact sheets that help you kind of decide if you want to do that. Are my costs of production too high? This is in comparison to like farms. What is my break-even crop price? What can I do if I want to be more profitable? What can I do to provide incentives for hired help to do a better job? And what kind of risk management strategies should I be using? So these are just a small sampling of questions that good record keeping can really help you answer. I know that taxes can be a really strong motivation in terms of keeping financial records. Um, Obviously, it's an important thing, it's required by law, but tax management is only one part of farm management. Tax minimization is not necessarily profit maximization. So the goal of just minimizing taxes every single year does not necessarily result in a very profitable farm. Any kind of record keeping is a good start to financial analysis. So if all you're doing right now is just keeping your tax record keeping in shape, that's better than nothing. But I would encourage you to look for areas where you can improve your record keeping to make more decisions related to farm management and risk minimization than just minimizing taxes. So tax records, this is all I'm going to say about tax records. If you have more questions, let us know and we can get you in touch with JC. Keep records for 3 years. You do not report income that you should report, and it is more than 25% of the gross income shown on your return. Keep those records for 6 years. You do not file a return, keep records indefinitely. You file a claim for a loss from worthless securities or bad debt deduction. Keep those records for 7 years, and then keep all employment tax records for at least 4 years after the date that the tax becomes due or is paid, whichever is later. Property records, you need to keep those indefinitely. Production records for animals. It helps you evaluate the animal's performance. You need to use a standardized record set. It helps identify problems and it's easy to compare across groups. We have several fact sheets. The cow, especially if you're a cow-calf producer, the cow-calf book that we have has all of the information about standardizing records. So I would encourage you to look into that, the cow-calf manual. The first step is to individually ID all animals. Typically, these are things like ear tags. If you're really small scale and everyone has a name, that's fine too. But we just need to make sure that we can keep track of who is who and make sure that we can keep their records separate. These are some production records that we would encourage cattle producers to keep. Pregnancy percentage, calving percentage, weaning weights, adjusted weaning weights, pounds weaned per exposed female, calving interval, and death loss. These are just the basics. I'm not going to go over the calculations for all of these today because we only have, 30 minutes together. But if you do have questions about calculating these, please let me know and I'll get you the correct resources. Software. I get this question a lot. What should I use to keep my records? The answer is use whatever works best for you and your goals. Some people are incredibly tech savvy and they want an app on their phone. Some people still prefer, paper record keeping. It can be something as simple as a spiral notebook. But if you are interested in software for production records for cattle and other livestock, um, they typically range from between $58 and $950. This is 2022 money, so probably a little bit more now. Consider commercial versus seed stock needs. Depending on your breed organization, there may be certain records that you need to keep. So you want to make sure that you have a software that aligns with those records that you have to keep. Consider level and cost of software support that will be provided by the company. So if you are not a tech savvy person, you probably want a company that provides more tech support. Consider specific cattle information that is required by the software. So if you cannot continue on with the record keeping, if you do not insert a weight and you do not have a scale, that is probably not a good software for you. We do have a fact sheet, the cow-calf production record software. This fact sheet is available online. If you click on the PDF version of the fact sheet, there is a really nice table that you can use to kind of assess what the different record-keeping softwares have to offer. For crops, you want to keep crop information, including variety, planting date, yields, population planted, and planter settings. You might want to keep your soil test summary, your nutrient planning, nutrient applications, pesticide use, and labor. We also have a fact sheet for crop and forage record keeping. Um, Again, if you click on that printer-friendly PDF version, there's a really nice table that has all the pros and cons of the record-keeping apps. We really try not to recommend a single record-keeping software or app. We have had some companies reach out to us and ask, well, why did you not include our app, etc. This was published and updated in 2023. We will probably update it again soonish. Pretty much, we look online, we find as many as we can. If we have questions about what that record keeping app includes, we reach out to the company. If the company does not get back with us in terms of providing more information on what their record keeping software can and cannot do, then unfortunately we do not include them. So we're not, trying to exclude any record keeping app. If you find one that's not on our list that works for you, fantastic. But that's just kind of our process in terms of trying to figure out some sort of list for people to get started with. Why do financial analysis and planning? First of all, determine where am I? Where do I want to be and how can I get there? So again, it's really based on your goals, and how easy or hard those goals are to reach are based on where you currently are. So business analysis, we have financial statements. So we have historical, and then we have projected statements. We have a spending plan or a budget. Break-even analysis is often completed. We have marketing plans, enterprise analysis, investment analysis, and then risk assessment. So these are all different activities that we can do with our records. Multiple reasons to keep records, obviously taxes, and then to measure your financial performance, and then apply for lending or other programs, which, to be honest, is a big driver for people in terms of keeping records. There are 4 groups of records. We have income, the money coming in, expenses, the money going out. We have our assets. These are typically things like your land or your machines or any kind of buildings. Long-term assets can also include things like breeding stock. Your liabilities are your loans. So they're what you maybe owe to either an operating loan or maybe a machinery loan or something along those lines. So assets, everything owned that has a value, tractors, breeding animals, land, buildings, four-wheelers. Quick comment on four-wheelers and those kind of fun pieces of equipment. Whenever we talk about the farm business, I like to think of the farm business as its own person. So if we are using four-wheelers for fun, does the farm business have to be trying to recoup that cost? If we're using four-wheelers to feed cattle, then yes, that is being used in the farm business. Four-wheelers are always an interesting conversation along with really fancy horses, right? So the horse that's helping with the cattle, obviously that's an asset to the farm business. The horse that is competing in shows and is just only doing that, maybe not so much. Liabilities, that's money that is owed. Notes to banks, equipment, dealers, agribusinesses, credit card companies. Again, I know it's really difficult to separate the farm business and family life, but it is really important if you're trying to evaluate the health of the farm business. Your balance sheet, what is owned and what is owed. It measures your net worth. Your cash flow statement measures money coming in and out of the operation for a specified duration. And this is typically done annually. Income statements, it measures income and expenses and helps determine profitability. We have fact sheets that detail how to do a balance sheet, how to do an income statement, how to do a cash flow plan. We actually have recently updated all of these fact sheets. These are not the right dates in the screenshot, but we have recently updated these fact sheets with our test farm. So we have a case farm, and the case farm is used in every single one of these examples. So you can kind of pretend that it's your farm and work through it with the case farm, which I think is really helpful. Uh, Financial performance measures, liquidity is the ability to pay bills in a timely fashion and provide for unanticipated events. The current ratio is used to measure this. Solvency is the ability to retire debts if all of the business assets are sold. So this is the equity asset ratio. Profitability is financial performance of the farm or enterprise over a period of time. This can be measured using net income or rate of return. And then financial efficiency, it's the efficiency with which assets generate income. Repayment capacity is the ability to repay term debt in a timely fashion. I will confess that all of the ratios and all of the calculation for the ratios, I don't even have all of those memorized on a bad day. So I actually have the farm financial stoplight fact sheet printed out. It's in my office because I'm always double checking these ratios. I'm really bad at memorizing those kinds of things. So if you have to look up these ratios, that's perfectly fine. So methods for keeping the records. Like I mentioned, a ledger, a published record book. I have been getting a lot of calls recently about the Oklahoma Farm and Ranch account book. It is difficult to print. It is a larger size piece of paper. I do think you can take that PDF still to Kinko's or another printing service, and they can print it for you. In the future, we may look at converting that to a different size that's more easily printed. We may look at converting that into an Excel version, but for right now, we just do not have those resources. Um, Really, anything other than a shoebox or the dash of a pickup truck is a step in the right direction. So it may take several iterations for you to figure out what works best for your farm business. Computerized, there are several production record keeping programs available. You can use spreadsheets. It's not that difficult, especially if you watch some YouTube videos or something, to set up a spreadsheet that works perfectly for your business. There are a lot of Excel spreadsheets, record keeping options out there, and I'm going to talk about a couple here in a second, but you can easily modify those if they are not working well for your farm business. Financial record keeping programs, there's Quicken and then there's also QuickBooks. I know that those are becoming more expensive and maybe cost prohibitive for some people. So I think there's a lot of other options if you don't want to go that route. So other options, University of Missouri, they do have an Excel record book, and we can potentially share these links later, or you can let me know if you can't find these items. But University of Missouri has an Excel record book. University of Michigan has an Excel record book that also works in Google Sheets and a printable version. Um, University of Nebraska, they have an agricultural budget calculator phone app. And if you Google like agricultural budget calculator training for them in Nebraska, it will come up. And they actually have a lot of training opportunities, both online and in person. I don't think anyone's going to drive up to Nebraska for that right now, but they do have several online trainings on how to use their phone app coming up in the next few months. So that may be a good option for people. And then for Quicken, we actually have an online class. It's self-paced, meaning you just work through it yourself. There are a lot of quiz questions and interactive questions to make sure that you're learning the materials. And it's $20 to take that online course. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. And that's it, unless we have some questions.
Feel free to post questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just ask a question here for the next few minutes. I did post the link to our very brief Qualtrics survey, kind of let us know how we did on this particular webinar. Give us some feedback for what we might do and do better in the future, or topics that you might be interested in. So with that, please share any questions for the next few minutes.
You're also welcome to email me if you have specific questions that you maybe don't want to share with the group. So go ahead and reach out if you need it.
Don't want to hold anyone any longer than you need to be here. So we'll give about one more minute and then we'll probably end the meeting. But we do want to thank everyone for attending. We had a great participation this time, and do let us know if you have any questions. Either get with us right now or send us an email. I think I'll go ahead and stop the recording and we'll go ahead and end the meeting for now. But thank you again, everyone.